a Bob Ross challenge. I'm not only going to follow one of his
One
iconic
that's very
tutorials,
nice.
I'm going to follow two and combine them into one masterpiece. And I'm going to paint it as a mural right here on this wall in my bedroom. I just got all my brushes out, sponges, 2-inch brushes, 1-inch brushes, all my paint. These are acrylic paints. They'll work well, and it's really all you need. I'll put them in the description. Use oil paint. I have to use acrylic paint. So I can't use the traditional liquid clear or liquid white that Bob Ross uses to make all the colors easily blendable. So I have this flow aid additive here that you could add to your acrylic paint and make it dry not only a lot slower, but also make everything easier to blend. First thing first, tape the edges, and I'm going to use a sponge just to lay out my white background, kind of priming the surface here with the white acrylic paint. Once I paint this first layer, I'm going to get straight into the Bob Ross tutorial. So I won't be using the same exact colors, but I'll just color match as close as possible.
We'll just start and make a little orangey circle. Something about like so. About like so. See, that just sort of changes the flavor. There. Okay. Now then, I'm going to wash the old brush, because that's the fun part. Put a little of that right there. And we'll just use the same old 2-inch brush. And let's go right up in here. And we'll just drop in a little bit of the crimson color. And I'm using little crisscross strokes, little X's. That makes it much easier to blend later on. We'll come back and we'll blend this entire sky. Just crimson. There. Now then, without washing the brush out.
So I'm loving how it looks so far, but is it me or does Bob make it look so peaceful and calm? And I feel like I'm just throwing down colors like it's a race over here. Well, if this doesn't scream happy little chaos, then I really don't know what does, but we have to trust the process. Chaos turns into magic.
Turn crimson. Something like that. And then a little bit more of the Prussian blue, alizarin crimson, and I'm going to add a small amount of black to it. All we're doing is making this progressively darker as it works out. That's all we're trying to do. So we have black, crimson, and blue now. But we want to make it quite a bit darker. There. Okay. And we'll just fill up the rest of the sky with that. Something like so. And a little touch right in there. And maybe a little touch.
So I just added a whole bunch of yellow, titanium white to the middle and just really blending it outwards, trying to brighten up my sky. Make it so bright you need sunglasses, as Bob Ross would say. Now it's mountain time, and this means we're starting on tutorial number 2.
It's a mountain that lives closer to us. So we'll just drop him in. Just a very simple little mountain. Nothing real complicated. At this point, all you're looking for is a nice outside edge here. We could care less what's going on in here. We're just looking for that little outside edge. Maybe something about like it. Once again, scrape off that excess paint. And we'll grab the old 2-inch brush, give it a little pull, and I want this to blend out till it literally just blends into nothing. Just knock off that excess paint. I'm trying to remove all the excess paint here that I can, because I want the bottom of this mountain to be lighter than the top. Right there. Now let's go up in here. Got to make some big decisions in our world. Maybe his little highlight lives right up in there like that. We don't know where it goes. Don't know that we even care. Shoot. Maybe there's a little ridge that comes right like that, like that. Maybe one in here. Isn't that a fantastic way, though, to make a little distant mountain? Works easy. You can do this. The biggest thing to remember is apply absolutely no pressure. No pressure. In other series I've mentioned when I was teaching my son Steve to paint. I told him just to pretend that he was a whisper that just floated right across the mountain. And that was the way I made him understand what a delicate touch. And today, Steve probably paints the best mountains in the country.
Bob has literally the most elegant ways to explain everything. He just said to be a whisperer and just barely float the knife on the mountain or something like that. It's just so beautiful, but I'm over here graceless like a bulldozer trying to whisper. Guess I'm more of a loud talker. Either way, even though it's taking me more than one little swipe like Bob, it's working, and I feel like as long as you concentrate on your angles, even if I'm constantly reapplying paint, it's still working out. And plus, I have to think my mountain is probably 3 times bigger than his, so I'm going to be using a lot more strokes of the palette knife.
Literally do anything. There we go. A little more of the shadow color. Reach right up under there, grab that, and put a little shadow under that peak. Each little peak, though, needs its own shadow, or it won't play with you. It'll just sort of go in and leave you. There. About like that. Maybe right up in here. Little touch. Dink. Right there. All right. Good clean dry brush. And I want to create the illusion of mist down at the base of this whole mountain. So all we're doing.
Alright, so I just gotta do a little bit of blending and mountains are done. I gotta say, I'm pretty happy with how they came out. They're not perfect, but really that's the fun of it, just enjoying the process and watching it all come together. That's the one thing about creating, you're never truly satisfied. So it's day 2, and today we're going to be finishing up this. I did the sky and the mountain already in one day, so I'm hoping to just finish the whole thing with this forest scenery from At Dawn's Light. It's going to be awesome, and we got this. And I got a special guest here today. Her name is Patchy. She just wants to say hi. She's going to be my special assistant. So this is when I have to make some decisions, as Bob Ross would say. Since At Dawn's Light, there are no mountains. His trees are literally snap dab in the middle where my mountains are. So I'm thinking I'm gonna put mines right underneath, or maybe I'll put them right here, and that way we cover that up. Yep, that's it. Thanks. Now it's time for the evergreen trees, because what's a mountain without some little friends? Bob Ross really makes them look so easy, and they are super easy. As long as you have a fan brush, load it up with a ton of paint. If you need to put a little bit of water to make it a little looser on your brush, then do so, but I didn't need to. And you just start with the very edge of your brush at the tippity top of the tree, and when you go down, just use more of your brush. It's super easy, I swear. This is like one of the first things I learned when I started doing Bob Ross tutorials, and probably one of the things that I still enjoy painting, and it just makes me so happy when I show people how to do this, because they're always so amazed with how easy it is.
But you should use the corner of the brush, and as you work down the tree, push harder and harder, forcing the bristles to bend downward.
I just mess it up. So I had to paint over the water I did yesterday. Sorry, water, it's nothing personal, but I really need this paint to be wet, because once I do the forefront, I'm gonna need wet paint to create these reflections. And you can't do reflections on dry paint. So I'm just color matching the same thing that I did yesterday and trying to work as fast as I can, because this stuff dries pretty fast. It's not oil paint, and I'm really just racing against time now and my own color matching skills, and so far so good. Alright, so now that I have my wet paint, I'm just tapping in these reflections. I'm starting off with my fan brush, doing the same motion I was for these evergreens. Then I got my 2-inch brush, literally loaded it with titanium white, and I'm tapping in bushes. The 2-inch brush makes the shapes for you. I literally love this brush. All you have to do and think about really is when you do the layer in front of this bush, you want to make sure you leave that gap. You see how I leave some space in between? This creates some illusion of distance, and that's what gives your painting that oof. These are those beautiful reflections he's always talking about. Only works with wet paint. Learn from me. Now we're going to use our palette knife again. Same thing, loaded up with titanium white. And I'm just, swiping in some water lines. You're going to have to load up your brush a few times. But it really creates a nice little line. And, even bushes need a little waterfront property. Now we're ready for some happy little bushes. And I'm just using my 2-inch brush again. And just tapping them in, creating these reflections. Also keep in mind, I might not be doing the same exact thing as Bob Ross because it's oil, he's using oil. I'm just trying to get these reflections in before my paint dries. So I usually do the reflections at the end too, but just for the sake of trying to have some wet paint and using my paint right, that's why I'm a little backwards here. But it's looking pretty good.
Back up in here and begin putting in some distant highlights on some of these. I don't want this one to be it's in the background. There we are. Something like so. Maybe a few little doers right in there.
All right, so let's flip these little snowy bushes upside down. Well, sort of. I'm just lightly putting them down, pulling them downwards, creating that reflection. And nature really does its own little magic mirror. Now I'm just evening out some of these lines, blending in where I see fit. And just up there, it seemed kind of too bulky, and it felt like there needed to be more water lines. And you could do this at the end, but like I said, wet paint is only for a short while, so doing it now. This was super fun to do. Pulling the paint at a nice angle kind of gave it this like flat look, something I never really experimented with before. And then putting the black or brown paint I think I used underneath gave it that depth that looked like it was a little mini cliff going into the water. So easy to do with the palette knife, yet super effective. Highly recommend, 10 out of 10. Side note, don't mind the blur. My hair was not having a good day. Alright, now I'm going to work at the bottom of this mural. Where did I go? It's just a floating hand now. This is either a ghost painting or I swapped out for my sister who's going to finish my painting and some Parent Trap stuff going on. Either way, I don't know why I find this so funny. I guess I needed a stool.
And Jack Frost has touched them also. There we go. Yeah, I'll just use a fan brush. We'll go right into Van Dyke Brown. And the dark sienna, just mix them together. Van Dyke, dark.
This is day 3 of the mural project. I am so close to being done. I can literally feel it. We just got some trees, some bushes in the forefront, and that is literally it. Started with the trees already. Now I'm gonna need my palette knife to make some bark on these trees. But first, we gotta paint the happy little trees. Of course there has to be 2. We don't want them to be lonely.
There he is. If you don't make that little noise, it won't work, go. Here we are. And we give him a little friend that lives right in there. Right. Now our light source is right in here, so the light's gonna hit and just zing right along like that. Excuse my arm up there a minute. Just a little highlight right along there. And we can take our little liner brush paint thinner on it. We want to thin this paint down till it's thin as ink. Very, very thin. If you have trouble making it flow, chances are it's just not thin enough. Then let's go right up in here and just put in the indication here and there of a little leaf, or a little, well, I've got it mixed up here. a little.
So now I loaded up my brush with a pinkish hue, mostly titanium white, but a little bit of that magenta color I was using. And I just wanted to give this tree a little love with some happy little leaves. And same thing like the bushes that we did in the background. You just want to leave a little gap and try to leave those leaves or twigs that you just painted visible. It makes it look like they're hidden inside these leaves. More decisions have to be made. In the tutorial, Bob Ross covers up nearly half of the sky with some bushes right here that go all the way down to the water. I have a mountain that I added from the other tutorials, so I really don't want to cover that up right now. So I'm going to add my bushes down here instead of starting up there. In true Bob Ross fashion, I'm making my own little world. Alright, so I'm just tapping in the shadow color of these bushes. I'm using my 2-inch brush. At this point, I wish I had a 5-inch brush. I don't even know if that's a thing, but it would definitely speed up this process. Anyhow, I'm just tapping them in. My paint already dried, unfortunately, so I'm gonna have to do some miracles to get this reflection in. As you can see, I'm doing a poor job color matching, but now I kind of got it together. Almost had a panic attack. And now I can get these reflections that have been plaguing me this whole mural. Literally with the clean dry brush, all I'm doing is pulling the paint straight down, and that gives it this nice misty effect, really making it look like a reflection. And once we put those water lines in, you'll really be able to see it. Alright, so now we have a whole family of bushes, and as you can see, I left a gap in between because that's where my trail's gonna be. We have to have a trail to get to places, so that's where I left that gap. And you know we had to do another evergreen, so got my fan brush out, doing the same method, starting with the edge of my brush and then working my way down using more and more of the brush, and it really just appears like magic.
And you can, maybe there was another one there, see? Just use the liner brush, and that same lavender color basically is all I'm doing. All right. Now then, back to my fan brush. That
Time for a bravery test.
trees, and they live right there. This is your bravery test. There's one, and there's his friend right there. Sort of a round pull, just see. It makes it look like bark on there. Oh, rough bark. A little touch on the other side, but not quite as much, just a little. Just to give the indication that there's a little there. I don't want this other tree left out here, so we'll put some on him. Something like that. There. A little touch here. Shoot, we're in business now. We can take a little touch of our dark color and go back and just barely touch and let the paint grab. Let it grab and then sort of lift it. And it'll make it look like real bark. And when it's dry, it'll feel like real bark. It'll absolutely feel like it. And then we can take our liner brush.
My camera does not do these trees justice. The texture it's giving, it looks like tree bark. It is literally awesome. I am falling a bit behind compared to Bob, so I'm speeding this up, but you know, my trees needed a little bit more space to grow. They're on a big mural, so that's my excuse.
There comes one. And this had leaves on it, so we don't have to put too many things in there. Little doer right in there. There, we'll just put even another little tree right here in front. Now then, find one of our little round brushes. It's a half-size round brush. And I'm going back to that very thin paint. This has the liquid clear in it. It's just titanium white and liquid clear. And it just...
Bob uses his trusty liquid clear here to thin out the paint and make it apply more smoothly onto this canvas. But since we're using acrylics, we can't do that. So I'm using the Flow Aid medium, which basically does the same thing. It helps the paint flow and blend more easily without drying fast, even though it still dries pretty fast. Acrylics are a lot different from oils, so this is really the secret to trying painting and making it Bob Ross style in acrylic. If you don't have that particular medium, then water works too. Just don't overdo it.
There we are. A little bit on this tree. We don't want him left out. Shoot, he'd get mad. There's nothing worse than an old angry tree. Now, tell you what we can do. We can go down in here.
It's time to give these bushes a little winter makeover, and we're bringing the snow, and it's coming in heavy.
Layers, so there's depth in it. Do the one that, in your mind, is the farthest away and work forward. Always working forward. There we go. And leave some of those little dark areas. That's your separator. Your good friend. Take care of it. Take care of it. Treat it well. There. This is just a little bit of that thin paint, and I've added a little titanium white. You want it just thin enough that it sticks. Over on the other side here, just a few little things like that. There. All right. We're about ready to put that little path in there that the little painter man ran down. And we'll just go right in here and just sort of work it back and forth. And that's all we had to do to put our little path in. There. Let it get larger and larger as it gets towards you. Closer it comes to you, larger it should become. And that little path just sort of disappears right on back here into the background. And that's what we're looking for. So a few little finishing touches. Shoot, I think we've got a pretty nice representation of the little painting that you see at the opening.
And I just got to add a couple water lines, and I am so happy to say that I am done with this mural. Oh yeah, and some little twigs just to push a couple of these bushes backwards. 3 days, 2 tutorials, and 1 snowy masterpiece with happy little trees and jolly little bushes. And here are my 2 inspirations. And just like that, it is a wrap. Thanks for following me on this epic Bob Ross journey. I really hope you enjoyed watching. If you did, check out the mini Bob Ross tutorial I did the other day. See you next time. Keep creating.